Hey guys, this is Eric Weingartner with Weingartner Racing. Today's video is going to be about this Flowtech head, the one that I've had several videos over this one about the internet ports heads. There hasn't been a whole lot of new ideas come up, so I wanted to try some different things, and I'm going to share them within this video. So please watch the video because I'm going to see some cool stuff, and yes, I discovered something that I should have been aware of before. Before I do this video, I need to do a little disclaimer because it happens again. First off, although I show you flow numbers, I want you to understand it's not what I value as the most important thing as far as head goes. What you see here is, this is a box full of note cards. Each one of those note cards is a cylinder head I've ported. On that note card has the measurements for the heads and also different notes that I have about the head. On that note card, there's only 2 numbers that have anything with flow numbers. I value way more information than the flow numbers, and they're on there. There's a reason why I'm not showing you. But I want you to understand that just because I'm showing you flow numbers, do not think that I think this is the most important aspect that comes to cylinder heads. Just because I'm showing it to you, I'm showing it to you because it's the easiest to show to you. It's not what I value as the most important. So as you're watching, you think the only thing I care about is airflow. You haven't watched enough of my videos, 1, because I mentioned many more things, and 2, no, I don't. Next thing I want to get to, I have never claimed to be the best head porter out there. Never will. I don't even know who the best head porter is, okay? There's many things I'm learning as times progress, and I've been doing this many years, officially since 2008, but I was doing it far before there, and I mean officially means I started paying taxes on this stuff. But I could promise you that there are better head porters out there. It doesn't mean I'm bad. I just know that I'm not arrogant enough to say I'm the baddest out there, because guess what? Whenever someone says that to you, they're not. Because for every head porter that out there that thinks they're the best, there's 5 guys out there that no one's ever heard of, because they don't get on forums, they don't get on the YouTubes, and they just do what they do, and they're amazing at it, and nobody except for the very elite know who they are, and they're winning races and making more power than you ever thought of. So I want you to think about that. So if you ask me who the best head porter is, I can't even answer, because I don't know who that person is. I can promise you there are probably only a few people even know who they think the best head porter is. Promise. Guaranteed. Because if I mention a guy that's good, he's going to mention 5 guys that are better. And those 5 guys will mention 5 guys better. One other thing I really quickly want to talk about, because it came up in the comments. If you're trying to compare how good a head porter is by what my vehicles run, like my Camaro and S10, I want you to understand those are my hobbies. I can make them faster if I wanted to. Guaranteed. Promise. I had a guy comment, and he was trying to compare my stuff as being slow, and that somehow he knew more than I did because that their cars are faster. Recognize those are my hobbies. If I wanted to go faster, they will go faster. It's really on how much I want to spend. I've got different priorities. Anyway, let's get to this head. It's going to seem like it's a story when I tell this, but I promise there's a lot of information that goes with this, because I found something that I wish I discovered earlier, because it changed everything. But I'm going to tell you the progress, the story on how I came to what I found out. So if it seems like it's getting long-winded, you have to know the beginning to know the end. All right, so here's the story. This is the 55-degree port. This one has been the highest flowing one. Now, if you notice, it's really huge. There's some other stuff I want to do. Well, if you remember from the last video, I said there's a few things I wanted to try. One was cutting down the guide. But the biggest thing is right here, there was this lip, because I had only ported and moved the short side over. Let me get a pointer so my finger's not there. What I had done is I had moved the short side over and got a whole lot of flow. And then I was like, I'll just work the short side area, and it lost flow. Then I cartridge rolled to gain flow. It's like awesome, and it was getting pretty close to 390. Well, I still had a notch here, a big old ridge on this line here, because I'd only ported there and left it here. So I thought, well, I'll just move this over, smooth it up, and reflow it. It should have been a big gain, or at least not a big gain. It should have made a slight gain, and I was at 388 CFM, should have gone over 400. It didn't, or sorry, over 390. It didn't, it lost 20 CFM. So at that point, I cannot even begin to tell you how frustrated I am. And if you're a new head porter, or you're new to the game, there are several times where you could port yourself into the hole, where you're like, this is good, and a little bit more and you make it horrible. It happens a lot, especially when you're first getting started. But for it to lose 20 CFM by something that honestly should have gained, the worst case stayed the same, frustrated me to no end. because just cleaning up this little lump here shouldn't have lost 20 CFM. So at that point, I got a little frustrated, really frustrated. So I went to work on the short port. Now I'm gonna show you this one, or the small port, because I actually am pretty proud of this. This one, because the only reason why I left this is because sometimes you have to walk away from something, you just do. So I went to this one and I filled it in with epoxy, and the port's really small. And now it still looks kind of big, but I need to fill in the top, and I haven't got there yet. There's a lot of material here, and I'm gonna flip around so you can see the short side, because this short side's got some height, okay? Did that, flowed it, and it was pretty good. I have to say, it's dramatically smaller than what it was, and it moves the same amount of air, and in some spots better. So I was pretty happy. I went back to this one, and I got to thinking, I was looking at this through the light on the bore, and I saw this. Now I've got the port plate on here. This is a 4030 bore. And I'm showing you this because I want you to see this. Look down there. Because that's when I spotted it and realized my error of my mistake. I'm going to point, and then I want to, hopefully the camera will zoom in. This is the bore ledge right there. I'm clipping it. See it? Not really good because the lighting's horrible. Let's pull it back. No. Well, let me see if I can't get it. There's no way. Well, it won't focus in right. Sorry guys about that. Let me just drop the head while I'm at it. Anyway, let me move the camera and I'll see if I can get a better view because this is important. Okay, here's a better view. This is inside the port. I'm holding it still as possible. Look right here. See that? Pay attention right there. You know what that is? That's the bore sleeve. So this is actually a 4030 bore it's flowed on. See that lip? That's the bore. So what this means is, as I was looking in here, I was like, son of a gun. The chamber the whole time, and I wasn't paying attention. That's a lip, and that's a heck of a lip. So let's flip it around so I can show you what I'm talking about. Because it pretty much negated almost everything I've done. Okay, here it is. So what's happening is, and I wasn't paying attention, I should have early on. This is the chamber. This is what it's flowed on, in case you're wondering. This attaches to the flow bench. This is a 4030 bore. The air is actually coming out on this side, nailing into this, and it goes all the way this way till here where it stops, and it's actually got enough room to clear. Here. Which means this whole side here is shrouding it. The whole side. So what looked like it was a loss because it dropped 20 CFM in flow because it was hitting this side, lost the flow because it had nothing to do with the port itself. At a certain point, the air couldn't support it anymore. And this is where I started doing some different things to show you. So what you see here, you see these notches that I put up here? Each one's a different valve lift point. So 100, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8's actually here, 9, and then I was just trying to see how far it goes this way. You can see where the valve is at each point. At 4 is actually when it starts clipping it. The valve's just barely below it. So if you notice at 5, the numbers aren't as good because now it's going around that lip. All the way around. At 6, it's there. So I was like, the port keeps backing up. I wonder why. Watch this. This is the valve. If I put it in the port, which I'm going to do, now watch how close it gets to the bore itself. So this is closed, of course. If I move to, say, let's go to a different point here, if I can move it right there. Okay, this is like, I think it's 400 I have it at, maybe 3. So let's go 4. See how much rooms there is? But as you open it more, there's less room. As the valve comes open more and more and more, see how it gets tighter and tighter right there? This is just to show you dramatic effect. But you get what I'm saying? As it opens, so this is closed, as it opens, it gets closer to the bore. So if you're wondering why the air is backing up, because I think I got it now, what's happening is, when it first opens, sorry about the movement of the camera, when it first opens and we do our normal lift point, say through here, the air can flow around like it's supposed to. It's still got a little, it's still shrouded here, but still some air can move this way. Well, as the valve opens more air is going to come through. And at this point, as the valve opens more, it gets less air. There's less area here. So the air can't keep that distance anymore. There's too much air trying to go through. So what happens is it pretty much blocks this zone. So all the air can only go that way. So what happens is, right as the airflow back up, not the short side, because the chamber itself shrouding it, and it only has that much area to use. Now, if you notice, well, wait a minute, doesn't the airflow start picking back up with higher lift? You're right. As it lifts up higher, granted, you're getting closer here, but now you have more area here. So at a certain point, what I'm trying to say is there's a crossover where the point here is blocking more of the flow, but you're not getting as much area here to increase the amount that you've lost here. Once you cross that crossover point and the valve starts opening more air has room, more air to get out, and it starts picking back up on flow. That's why you kept seeing the airflow back up. So it didn't matter what I did in the port. For instance, I ruined this 50-degree one because I laid the back to the short side so much thinking that it had to be the short side speed, even though I knew it wasn't, ignored basic facts. It had nothing to do with that. It was the chamber. As the valve got closer, less area here could not be made up by the rest of the area here. Flow backed up. As it starts opening more, there's even less area, but more on this side. Flow starts picking back up. That was it the whole time. Now, I know you're thinking, well, how can... By the way, here's some measurements to give you an idea. This is how close the valve is to the cylinder. So at 400, it was 120. At 500, 110. But then it starts dropping off pretty dramatically. Now, I'll warn you, these numbers aren't like... They're probably within 5,000s. I'm trying to measuring with... At first, it was modern clay. But then the distance got too tight. I started using feeler gauges, and it became quite a bit difficult. If you look, 6, 81 thousandths. That's how close that valve is to this bore. 7, 70 thousandths. 9, 61. I could tell you it's shrouded. I think Darren says at 170, anything less than that, it's shrouded. And there should have been clues because if you, I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, you can. You see that on the chamber? That's where my valve cutter's hitting it when I'm doing the valve job. Should have been a clue. There's not enough room. But anyway, that's the distance. So as the valve opens more, of course, it gets more shrouded on that side. Now you're like, can you prove it? You bet I can. Because of this, I was like, I've got a way to test to see if this is the problem already. You know what I did? I floated on a larger bore. This is a 4030. I've got a 4155 bore. It picked up a lot. So I'm going to show you those numbers with the 4030 and the 4155 bore so you could see those. Because I wondered if it was just that one. So I didn't just do it on this high flowing one. I did it on the smallest port too to see if that was still the problem. Because if you look, there's a ledge on each one of them. Remember, this is a 4030 bore. The chamber, when I measured it, because I took this off to see, I should have done this to start off with, the chamber is 4090 wide. So yeah, it's wider anyway. It's wider than the stock LS3. I took for granted on that. The other note, these are all boxed up, but these were the ProComp heads. I measured its bore at the same time, 4155 on the head. Its chamber was wider anyway, and that's an LS3 head. Its chamber was so much wider. That's the reason, another reason why it sucked on flow. So anyway, let's look at the numbers so you can see. I'm probably gonna have to do a separate video because this one's gonna be too long, just talking about the short port and some other stuff. But I wanted to make sure I covered everything. So let's look at the numbers so you can see. Okay, here are the numbers, and I'm gonna go through the best. This is a 55-degree port because I want to show you this. You could see why I got frustrated. This is where I left off. So you'll watch the last video. This is where I left off, 388. Really good numbers, right? All I did is what I told you, just right there at the push rod pinch, just smoothed out that runner area, and this is what the numbers were. So if you look, 100, you can ignore that. You can ignore 100 there. I've said that before. Slight gain there, but then if you look at loss, big loss, huge loss. You know there's a number here missing because I think they tried doing the 750 on a different one. Loss. You could just say it was horrible, right? I mean, 10 CFM right there, and other points bad. All from smoothing one corner. So you could see my frustration. Okay? It was definitely there. Now there's what happened though when I floated on the 4155 bore. So these are the stock numbers, so you can ignore all that. I actually put a 750 in here. So there's a 750 lift. I wanted to show you. Here's where it was. This is the 4155 bore. So really you're comparing 4030, 4155. Look at the change. Again, ignore 100. 126 to 131. 200, 208. Here's a big one, 400 lift, which that's right where the lip's starting. 282 from a 268. Big gain. 20 CFM jump at 5. Look at this, 600, 374 CFM from 354. Look at this, 344, that sucked. Just the bigger bore. Just the bigger bore, 386. Now I recorded 750 just because I knew it hit 390. It hit 391 at 750. Then it has a little backup because again, it's probably still getting close on that side. It's not as shrouded, but it is shrouded, and then picks up 388. That's quite a bit more. 393 at peak. Just the larger bore. What you saw here was nothing port-wise changed. Clip modeling clay stayed attached. I used to float with it and do a thing. Bigger bore. Why am I showing this? Because if you remember the AFR head, if you guys watch my videos, everything you can think of like a continuation of a story. The AFR heads, when I floated them on a 4030 bore, they actually flowed better than they did on a 4155 bore. Not so with this. That is a huge change, especially for the size of the bore. Point being is a lot of the port work that was done was messed up by the chamber and affected the way it was. That might have changed the results. Now, if you're like, well, that was just that one. What about the others? This right here, my friends, is that small port. And I'm going to show you the numbers. Okay. Now, they're not big because the port's not big. Let's look at those numbers. Okay, let's look at the small port. I shouldn't call it the short port. This is the small one. This is the one that's been filled in with epoxy. And its short side's really tall, which you can't really capture in a video. The port itself's like 20 cc's or more smaller than it was stock. So yeah, there's porting taken out some areas and other areas are filled in. There's still more work to be done with it, but time is my restraint right now. But I wanted to show you what happens with it when I float it on this 4030 and the 4155 bore. So let's look at the numbers. This is it right out of the box. This is after port work, which you may say, you lost. Remember, this thing's like 20 cc smaller. So about the same there. Lost it there, lost there, lost there. Gain, about the same, gain and gain. So you're like, well, you only picked it up there and no one runs there. You're right. But I promise you, this port will make more power than that one. It's smaller, you'll like it better. However, I really think it's because of the whole shrouding thing that became the issue. So I floated on the 4155 just like I did the other. Look how much it changed. Better, a lot better, better, a lot better. And look at this, 369 at 7. And then 356. You can see the port kind of carries. Because this kind of gives away something. All the rest, it would drop and then come up. This just dropped and stayed the same. Because at this point, it's not so much the chamber, it's the port. Being as small as it is, it can't carry any more airspeed. So, anyway, but still really good. That kind of shows you how much of a difference is that bore size is making, and it's throwing things off. Now, what's going to happen later with these heads? Well, several people have asked if I could just port one like I normally would. Well, I did. This is the one that was dimpled. It still has its stock valve job on too. So I ported it like I normally did and I floated. It gained a little bit, not as much as I would hope for, but it did pick up. It picked up in pretty good areas. I'm going to do a later video about this one because it is what it is. Anyway, if you see the dimples, it's because I, of course, couldn't grind them all out. Right now, the throat's 90% and it's on the stock valve job. What I'm going to test later on, in case you want to watch the later videos that are coming up, I'm going to test the throat at 90%. Then I'm going to put a different valve job in and do 91% and see what that flows. Then I'm going to test the textures. This one, my stock one, I only put a burr finish right around where the throat is and leave the rest at 40 grit or 60 grit, depending on what mood I'm in. I'm going to test a full burr finish, and then I'm going to smooth it up, blow it again, then I'm going to burr it again, then I'm going to smooth it up again, and then I'm going to do dimples one more time. Then I'm going to ruin it. I'm going to put the throat at 93% because I've got a video on how making the throat too big can ruin the head. I'm going to do that, and you'll see it get ruined. And then I'm going to try some different things. On the 55-degree port, I'm going to fill in the floor like I was going to anyway and call it done. And then I'm going to finish out this one, the small one, just to kind of finish it out, make it look like it should. And that's going to be done. And then I'm going to start doing weird things to the head. What weird things? I'm going to angle mill it, which means I'm going to take more off this side of the head than that side and get the chamber small. And we'll see what happens from there. Then I'm going to do something that's totally stupid. I'm not just going to angle mill it this way. I'm going to angle mill it this way, which means I'm going to take more off this side of the head than that side. Essentially, I'm going to make the head go from flat like this to tilted like that, where it's going to make the valves open this way. And if you're saying, well, that's dumb, you can't use that, you're on a live engine, you're right. Because if you did, this side's chamber would be dramatically smaller than this side. But it's an artificial way to make the valve canted, which means not straight anymore, but tilted. So when it opens away from the bore. We'll see what it does. By the way, if I did that, it'd also make the exhaust move towards the bore. Anyway, I'm going to do that, and I'm probably going to have it all wrapped up, and that's where I'm going to call it quits. And then I'm going to say, give an auction to someone that wants to just buy the head, because I want it, and then it can be done. You guys who never want with it, look at it and laugh at it. Before I go, I do want to have one other quick thing I want to share with you guys, something I'm super proud of. That's this. That's my son's swim team. He swims for Broken Arrow High School. Those kids are amazing. They really are. They have the best team spirit. I'm not like, oh my gosh, Broken Arrow, woohoo. No, I'm talking like as they back each other up, even when they know someone else has had a hard time at a meet or event. And even if they're like swimming dead last, they try cheering them on, and it's amazing. I've been in many of their meets, and no one is so united as they are. I've seen. It is fascinating. Anyway, I'm so proud of each and every one of them, my son included. But anyway, I wanted to share that. If you got comments, feel free to leave them, and I'll read through them and go from there. Just remember, though, if your information's false, and I might correct you on it. And if you continue to try perpetuate that false statement, I'm going to delete it. Anyway, you guys take care, and see you guys later.